Peskov shared details about the conversation between Putin and Trump. Not allowed to Eurovision? Will launch Intervision. Putin is planning to hold his own international song contest with Africans and Chinese. Ukrainian drones were shot down at night in Gomel, Belarus. Danish intelligence warned of the threat of war in Europe with the Russian Federation. How much more money is Russia willing to spend on the war? The Russian authorities are silencing war correspondents because they report on the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. These are the news today in the studio. Yulia Kurtz. Good afternoon. At night, UAVs were again spotted over Gomel, Belarus. This happened when Russia was carrying out an attack on Ukraine. It is likely that Shahed drones were once again carried into Belarusian territory. Residents observed explosions in the sky at night, writing about air defense operations against drones in the village of Romanovici near Gomel, as well as in the Volotov district of Gomel. Officially, the Belarusian authorities have not commented on the information. During that night, the Russian air defense system allegedly shot down 83 Ukrainian UAVs over 9 regions of the Russian Federation. After a phone conversation between Putin and Trump, his staff, Peskov stated that Putin and Trump instructed their aides to immediately begin working on organizing a high-level meeting. He added that preparations for forming a negotiation group for dialogue with the USA have already begun. However, it is too early to say whether China will be involved in the negotiations. At the same time, he added that there is still no understanding of the format of the negotiation process. The place and timing of the meeting between Putin and Trump can be announced after further planning, Peskov said. The invitation to Trump to visit Moscow does not mean that he will come on May 9th. The topic of recognizing Crimea and the 4 occupied regions was not raised during the conversation between Putin and Trump. Danish intelligence warned of the threat of war in Europe 5 years after the cessation of hostilities in Ukraine. In 2024, the Russian Federation transitioned to intensive rearmament of its army with the aim of being able to stand on equal footing against NATO. Intelligence believes that with the current level of defense spending by European countries and the lack of support from the United States, the Kremlin in 5 years will be able to start a large-scale war on the continent. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, commenting on the Danish intelligence information about a possible Russian attack, stated that Putin will face catastrophic results if he decides to attack one of the alliance's countries. Last year, the Kremlin spent $462 billion on the military, while the European Union countries and Britain spent $457 billion. This year, Moscow will pour even more into the war. Almost about 40% of the country's budget in GDP. Despite the blow to the economy, analysts are confident that Russia can still afford to wage war, even if it's with its last resources. I won't even mention that all this money could have been spent on the development of the Russian Federation, rather than on the destruction of Russians, Ukrainians, and cities for nothing. This is the city of Norilsk, the dirtiest and most depressing city, as the Russians themselves say. At the beginning of the short spring, the dirt roads in this area turn into impassable rivers of mud. There is no road connection with the rest of Russia. The streets are covered with black snow, and there is a smell of sulfur in the air. But even under Russian conditions, nearly 200,000 people live here. Let me remind you, the Norilsk region has significant deposits of natural gas. Norilsk topped the ranking of the richest mines in the world. There are a lot of mineral resources here. Nickel, copper, platinum, palladium, and even gold are mined here. And what about the Russians? What do you think? Who is to blame for this? Write in the comments, I read them all. And give a like to support me and our team. The Russian authorities are already silencing their own war correspondents. And all because the latter are reporting on the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. And this, of course, tarnishes the image of Putin and his supporters. How is the Kremlin cleansing the information space of Russians, and how long will this continue? Watch the story further.
The Russian authorities are silencing their own Z-bloggers who report on the situation in the Kursk region. This is reported by the Institute for the Study of War.
Russian officials are trying to restrict information from Russian bloggers about the current front line in the Kursk region. This is likely in response to concerns that the West will pressure Russia to exchange Russian territory for occupied Ukrainian territory. Several Russian mill bloggers, who regularly criticize the conduct of Russian military in the war in Ukraine, stated on February 10th and 11th that unidentified individuals are urging Russian authorities to charge them with discrediting the Russian army, following reports of recent advances by Ukrainian forces southeast of Sudzha.
Propagandists claim that the Russian military command is also persecuting them for publishing information about successful Ukrainian attacks in the area of Cherkasskaya, Konopelka and Fanasevka, and one blogger stated that recent Ukrainian attacks even forced the Russian military commander to postpone plans for a future offensive operation in this area.
Analysis of Russian public channels suggests that extrajudicial punishments are widely used in the Russian army against those who have deserted the line of contact.
In other words, the Russian command is trying to prevent its soldiers from mass desertion and the public from learning about failures at the front.
Currently, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is employing the tactics of the first successful Ukrainian counteroffensive. This refers to the informational aspect, specifically maintaining informational silence, meaning official. There are no confirmations of the expansion of the Ukrainian Defense Forces' presence in the Kursk region or the capture of settlements. Nevertheless, analysis part of information from open sources suggests that the Ukrainian Defense Forces have currently expanded their presence in the Kursk region by 100 square kilometers.
Analysts suggest that the Russian military command's control over information from the Kursk front is related to statements by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about the intention to use Russian territory in future peace negotiations.
Yes, the Russian side and Russian public forums fully understand the possible future scenarios at the moment of ceasing active combat operations in Ukraine. This concerns external political efforts. President of the United States Trump and accordingly, those contacts of the American administration with representatives of the Russian political elite.
It seems like a dictator. Putin and his team are simply afraid of a reality that does not play in their favor. How long they can hold out like this is unknown. After all, if they can still silence people in their own country, it's difficult to do so in the world.
Russia is planning to hold its own international song contest called Intervision. The doors to Eurovision have been closed to them since 2022 due to the war Putin started in Ukraine. It is already known which countries will participate in the contest, who will be its headliner, and what song singer Yulia Chicharina proposes to fill the contest with. All of this will be covered in the following segment. Russia cannot come up with anything on its own, so it continues to plagiarize. Or simply put, steal what has already been invented before them. On the front, Russian occupiers are robbing Ukrainians and do not hesitate to steal even from their own citizens.
Nearby, in these houses, everything is there. TVs, beep, beep, no bills. You just need a train, some kind of freight, and take it away from here.
Meanwhile, in the rear, where life flows as if there is no war at all, Russian celebrities continue to entertain themselves. The people need bread and circuses. Russians are no longer impressed by concerts on Red Square. We need to make it so that someone from friendly countries wants to participate in this event. So they pulled out a dusty idea from the old chest. Let's hold an intervision.
Intervision. I'll answer you to the West.
Together with strange partners, the rules of the creative competition will be determined We will form a permanent organizing committee. We will select, accordingly, representatives of the national juries. I am sure that the song contest will become a bright and extraordinary musical celebration for all our citizens.
In this way, Russia will replace the world-famous Eurovision with an import.
There is another good idea to create something of this level, a festival. Like an interview, we once proposed this and our Chinese friends supported and embraced it. We'll see what comes of it, but we will all work on this together.
A show with this name was already held in the USSR.
Watch and listen to Moscow.
Recalling the memory of that interview, which was back in the Soviet Union. But this will be a qualitatively new contest, a contest already of the 21st century. There are many interested television companies or production firms from all BRICS countries, from the CIS, have already confirmed their participation.
In the 1970s-80s, the Intervision Song Contest was held in the socialist bloc countries, and hardly anyone would have remembered it in 1925 if not for Putin.
Well, look, Eurovision, it's clear, European vision and Intervision. It literally translates to between, and it turns into some kind of between vision. And then everyone thinks according to their own level of corruption, and someone will definitely go online. And if you write the word Intervision as one word, then, for example, Yandex translates it as interference. And there you have it. Hello, already a political tint.
In 2008, Channel 1 organized a children's contest in Sochi, also named Intervision, in which performers from 11 countries of the former USSR participated.
As if we are emphasizing too much, like we essentially have the same thing, but just different, our own. And to avoid this slight sense of being secondary, I would come up with a completely different name. Less similar. Well, for example, we have the BRICS games. So let there be BRICS songs.
In 2015, they wanted to hold the children's Intervision in Sochi again, but it was cancelled amid the annexation of Crimea and the start of the war in Donbass. And so in 2025, Putin once again wanted songs and dances. He signed a decree to hold an analogue of Eurovision.
I guarantee there will be no perversions and mockery of human nature as we observed during the Olympic Games in Paris.
The idea is that the contest should attract performers from countries that share Russian spiritual values.
Intervision songs that will give all countries the opportunity, without any censorship, to showcase their best musical traditions. More than 20 countries have already announced their participation. In a way, it's a unique musical expo, you know.
Iran, North Korea, Sudan, Afghanistan, Libya, and Zimbabwe have already expressed their desire to participate in the contest.
It is precisely the close cultural connection and spiritual closeness of our peoples, an extensive human contact.
Initially, the Intervision was supposed to take place in St. Petersburg in 2024. The government of the Russian Federation even allocated 600 million rubles for the preparation. Mishustin spoke about this, but it didn't work out. Part of the money, as usual, was stolen, and the state budget went to war. Another attempt by the Kremlin. An import-substituted music contest will be held in 2025 in Moscow and the Moscow region. The supervisory board will be headed by a friend, Putin's friend Kirienko. The organizing committee of Intervision will be headed by Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Chernyshenko, along with producer Gleb Shagun.
Intervision is not just a music contest, but a symbol of the aspiration for a multipolar world, where culture serves as an important factor of unification, not division.
A former member of the duo Tattoo, which reached the Eurovision final in 2003, commented on the new Intervision.
If people want to participate, then why not? It's great that there will be an opportunity to showcase oneself.
The eccentric Chicharina has already suggested singing about the fighters of the so-called special military operation at the song contest.
We shouldn't copy Western art. We shouldn't create a fake Eurovision with fake stars and all their tinsel. We have our own path. The strongest talent should emerge, not someone's proteges.
Well, they certainly want to make the shaman the headliner of Intervision. Why does Russia need its own Eurovision? The answer is obvious. When one door closes, another opens, but with a big sign, so that the occupiers, from whom the whole world has turned away, can put on rose-colored glasses. These were the news today. In just a couple of hours, in the evening edition of In Trend, the roasting of the Russian people has begun from all sides. In Sochi, a pair of raccoons staged a spicy scene right on the roof of a taxi. It turns out that no one is particularly planning to liberate the Kursk region. Zinc coffins with so-called heroes of the special military operation were thrown into the trash. I will show you the video. Don't miss it. See you on the air.